So, hi everyone, I welcome you all to Resume Hacks to Boost Your Career webinar. We are delighted to have Dhairya Gangwani with us as a speaker for this webinar. Let me tell you a few things about Dhairya. Dhairya Gangwani is an ECE engineer turned management consultant who now works full-time career coach and content creator. She has worked with KPMG in India as an SAP associate consultant for 2.5 years. She has delivered over 500 plus talks across all the globe in the past 2 years as a career coach via her initiative as Dhairya Decodes. She has been able to impact over 5K working professionals and students. She has amassed over 1 lakh plus followers across social media platforms and delivered a TED Talk plus three Joe's Talks as well. She was selected as the top 50 content creators by Graphy by An Academy in the year 2021 and was also a part of the first cohort of the 200, top 200 selected creators for the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator Program in India 2022. Very recently, she was also recognized as the top 25 education and career content creator in India by Unstock in May 2023. Now over to you, Dhairya.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And a very, very good afternoon to everyone who's joined in today. The next 1 hour is going to be very, very insightful. At least I'll try to make it as insightful as possible from my end. We're going to be talking about resumes and making your resumes help you land your dream jobs, because a resume is an essential piece of document that any recruiter sees even before interacting with you. And throughout the session, the flow is planned in such a way that we'll obviously start with the basics related to a resume, after which I want to talk to you about the ATS, which is a very important thing you should know about. We'll talk about how you can get past the ATS and make it through your dream companies. We'll also talk about what does an ideal resume template look like, and where and how can you make one probably, and what kind of customization do you need to do in your resume to make it ATS compliant, right? Apart from that, I will also be talking to you a little bit about how you need to customize your resume every time you're applying to different companies, right? And briefly, I'll touch base on a video resume as well, and we'll have a Q&A session, right? That's the overview of the session so that you know what all we are going to cover and what's in store. For everyone who will have any questions throughout the session, just some ground rules. Feel free to keep putting in your questions in the chat box, right? I'll address your questions towards the last 10 minutes of the session, right? So stay rest assured, just keep putting in your questions in the chat box and I'll address them. Or towards the end, in case, apart from the questions in the chat, if you really want to ask a question, we'll see if we can unmute you and then you can ask your question, right? But that's for the later part of the session. On that note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sharing my screen. Just give me a moment. Okay. Even before that, while I'm sharing my screen, quick question for all of you. I want you to be very, very spontaneous. The first word that comes to your mind is what you have to put in the chat. And the question I'm asking you is, what are some of the few words, or what is the first word that comes to your mind when you listen to the word CV? Okay. So the question I'm repeating again, what's the first word that comes to your mind when you listen to the term or the word CV? Just put in the keywords in the chat. Overview of a candidate, formal, okay. Resume is what somebody has put, detailed information, job search, the overall candidate resume, experienced resume called CV, curriculum vitae, biodata, experience. Okay, so I see a lot of obviously different keywords coming in from all of you because everybody has their own opinion, which is great. I have a second question to ask, right? And be very spontaneous again. If these are the words that come to your mind when you listen to the term CV, what are the words that come to your mind when you listen to the word resume? Be very quick, be very agile. Whatever is the first thought, just put that. Okay, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you listen to the word resume then? In short, details. Okay, skills plus experience letter, resume for freshers, for showing your skills, details. Okay, anybody else? Is it enough for the role? The work which we do, fresher showing skills, life achievement. Okay, fine. Thanks everyone. Thank you so much. So why I asked you this question is very, very important. It's deliberately done. It's asked in a particular order for a reason, right? I have probably taken over maybe 200 plus resume related sessions across different corporates, companies, startups. And whenever I ask this question, I'm not even kidding you. Whenever I ask the first question, obviously people are agile with their answers. When I ask the second question, also, they are obviously very agile with answering and they're happy to answer. But then both the answers just get merged, right? The answers are not distinct. And that's what I want to talk about. If I'm conducting a resume building session, the starting has to be to talk about a resume and a CV, because everybody talks about resumes and CVs like they're the same things. A lot of recruiters also use them as interchangeable words, which is not correct, right? So let's start with first letting me, buzz the myth to you that a CV and a resume are not the same things. They're different from each other, and you must know the differences between the two. So we'll get started on that note. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Okay, I think my screen is visible to everyone. Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you. So let me go to full screen then in that case. Yeah. Okay, so yes, let's get started. Like I asked you, the first question, what is the difference between a resume and a CV, which is extremely essential, right? First thing, whenever you are applying for a job, now whether it's a job at an agency, at an MNC, at a startup, a government job, doesn't matter. Anytime you're applying for a job, if your agenda is to look for employment, the document that you use is called a resume, okay? Anytime that you are applying to, let's say, a university to study further, let's say you want to do a master's, you want to do an MBA, whether it's in India, outside India, doesn't matter. If you want to study further and you're applying to universities, or you want to do a PhD and do research work, so anything related to academia and research, you actually submit a CV. Okay, so that's difference number one, the purpose for which these two documents are used. Second, now, if you look at a CV and if you look at a resume, you'll go to find out that both the documents have got the same number of sections. The titles of the sections in the documents are also same. Then how are these two, different from each other? They're different from each other in the sense that what are the sections in these two documents that we elaborate on or talk about at length? So when you build a resume, because you are using it to apply for jobs, the sections you need to elaborate on and talk about at length are your experience section, your skills section, and your project section. Okay, because your skills, experience, and your project section matter the most to a recruiter who's looking to hire talent into a firm. So you elaborate more on those sections in a resume. As opposed to that, when you're building a CV, because you're applying to universities to study further, what their university representatives will concentrate more on is a stellar academic record. So they want to know your academic grades in the past few years. They would concentrate on any extracurricular activities you've been a part of, volunteering work you've done, and probably any research papers you've published, etc. That's what they'll be more inclined towards. So you will elaborate more on these sections in a CV. Okay, that's difference number two. And moving on to the last difference, which is the most critical one on number three, we've got the length of these two documents. Okay, now if you go to the internet, you talk to people, you go to YouTube, you go to different articles, any social media platform, everybody is always debating about the length of a resume or the length of a CV, right? And I'm not going to be claiming here that what I'm saying you should blindly follow or whatever, not at all. All I'm saying is it's been about 3 years now, and I help people between the age of 18 to 45 with approximately 0 to 25 years of experience, build resumes, build LinkedIn profiles, etc. And basis that knowledge, applying that knowledge, not just for myself, for so many mentees, what I've learned is that if you fall between the 0 to 5 year experience range, fresher to young working professional, as we call it, then it's ideal to have a one-page resume. Ideal means it's the best case scenario, right? Having said that, if you can't build a one-page resume, you're not going to get penalized. You won't get rejected. Those are all myths again. There is no company that guarantees you that if you have a one-page resume, you will get selected. No. But what's very important is whether you have 10 years experience, 25, 2 or 5, right? You can't go beyond 2 pages. A resume cannot be longer than 2 pages, okay? When you come to a CV does not have any specific length as such. It can be 3 pages long, 4 pages long, 6 pages long, but a bare minimum length of a CV is at least 3 pages because it's definitely more detailed, okay? The fact that a CV does not go through an ATS is the reason why there's no specific length that is ideal for a CV, but a resume goes through the ATS, which we'll talk about, and hence it's best to not cross 2 pages, come what may, right? So now let me just quickly come back. Are we all clear with what's the difference between a resume and a CV? My video is buffering, is what someone has said. Guys, are you able to see me? Are you able to hear me? Is there an issue with my network? If you all could drop a thumbs up, if there's no issue. Okay, probably there's an issue at one person's end then. Okay. Perfect, perfect. Any questions, guys? I'll address it towards the end. So keep putting them in the chat, no problem. With that, let's move on. I think we have established, I would say, enough clarity on the difference between a resume and a CV. Now it's time to talk about different kinds of resumes at length, because now we know what our resume is, right? Properly. So the next thing I'm going to be talking to you about is the different kinds of resumes that exist in the market. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. So yes, let's start with talking about the different kinds of resumes that exist in the market today, right? The first one is called a chronological resume. Just like the name suggests, a chronological resume is one in which all the dates associated with your education, projects, or your certifications, experience, they're all aligned in a chronological order, which means they will be put up in the order in which they occurred, okay, ascending order, from the earliest one to the the latest one, which is, let's say, 2016, then 17, 18, 19, and it will go until 2023. That'll be the chronological order. If I follow the exact opposite of this, it's called a reverse chronological order, wherein I'll start with your experience or your internship you have done in 2023, then 2022, then 2021, and so on, right? That's a reverse chronological order. A reverse chronological order resume is better to have, because if you think about it logically, a recruiter would always be more curious and interested in knowing more about your most recent experience and where you've worked at last, and they would like to dig deeper into that, right? Always. So always start with your most latest one, which is a descending order or a reverse chronological order. The second kind of a resume type is called a functional resume. Okay. Now, a functional resume is one wherein you don't concentrate on the dates. Okay. So it doesn't matter which internship, which work experience you have done when. The only thing that is concentrated upon is elaborating and focusing on the skills and the work experience. Okay. What this means is that there's no particular order in which you need to put up your experience. You need to mention everything in your experience section. Let's say you did some internship in 2016, you could put that up first, followed by a work experience in 2018, then 2020, then 2022. So it can be a haphazard order, because what you're rather focusing on is the work experience and the skills you gained out of those particular stints. Okay. This is not an ideal format for freshers because they don't have that kind of length and breadth of experience. It's a good format for people with 5+ years of experience. Okay. 5 or more years of experience, because you would have worked across different departments or different companies and played different roles, right? And worn multiple hats, wherein you will have that kind of freedom to choose that, no, even though I worked at this company 2 years back, I feel I contributed better. I created a better impact in this company, and that will reflect better on my resume. And hence, I'm going to state that experience above the most recent one. It won't make sense for freshers. Okay. If you can somehow combine both the formats, a chronological and a functional resume, then it's called a combinational resume, or it's called a hybrid resume, right? That is what you call it. Now, the fourth category that I'm coming to is called a targeted resume. It's the most important one, and you should definitely be knowing about it, because I don't think it's a resume category. It's actually something that's very important for every resume you build. Now, whenever you apply to, let's say, 2 different companies or 3 different companies, but for the exact same role, let's say you're applying for a business analyst role at Amazon, you're applying for a business analyst role, for example, let's say at Nika, and you're applying for a business analyst role at Google, right? All 3 of them can have openings for a business analyst. The job title is exactly the same. Even then, what most of the people would do is send across the exact same resume to these 3 companies. That's exactly where 99% of the people go wrong, because trust me, only 1% of the people are customizing their resume as per the companies truly. Every time you make a resume, and if you target it to a particular company, right, and you tailor make it and customize it according to the needs of that company, that's when it's called a targeted resume. And it's not an option, it's a mandate, which means it's mandatory to do that. Okay. It's very, very important to target your resumes for the particular companies you're applying to. Hence, I would highly encourage everyone to follow that. Okay. And what's extremely important, I would say, is you need to understand that just like, when you look at Amazon, Nykaa, and Google, they are three companies with three very different histories, three different categories of customers they cater to. Okay. Their vision, their mission, their goals are very different. And hence, their definition of a potential or ideal business analyst are very different from each other. Yes, maybe 90% of the job description would be the same. Job description is a document which is released by each and every company whenever they are hiring or looking for talent to join in a particular role or in a team. There's a job description for each job role that a company rolls out, wherein your roles and responsibilities, what kind of technical skills you should have, what kind of people management skills you should have, etc., is all listed down. Basic qualifications, it's all specified. Okay. And even though it's the same role, maybe 90% of the JD would be same across three different companies, you will observe it's impossible that the JD is copy pasted or it's exactly the same. Not possible. Amazon may have one extra requirement or one extra software you need to know, which Nykaa may not have, whereas Google may have two extra certifications they need you to have. There'll always be something different. And because of that one change, your resume also needs a change and tweaking, which we'll talk about at length. Okay. So that's a targeted resume. Now, mini resumes are nothing but your cover letters. They're not actually resumes. They are things that go to a job recruiter along with a resume, right? So you complement your resume with a cover letter. Cover letters are used to further talk about your personality, your interests, with respect to joining that particular company specifically. And it's a great way to stand out from the crowd because, again, 95% of the people will send a good resume across maybe, but most of the individuals are lazy. They'll not take out the time to sit down and curate an entire cover letter. People don't do that. So the ones who are going to be making a cover letter, right, they are the ones who are going to stand out automatically. So that's about it. The last category is a non-traditional or an unconventional resume type, which is called a video resume or a visume, right? Now, a video resume is a highly visual and effective resume type. It's not very common in India, although job portals do use it. Some of the job portals use it when you are applying, that you have to put up a 30 seconds video introduction of yours. But if you apply to companies as such directly, no, there is no requirement wherein today, at least in India, a company is telling you, please upload a video resume. So you might have a question, where will I use this or how will I use this resume type? So anytime you're trying to do cold outreach or you have a database of emails of recruiters or you want to directly reach out to, people or you're applying through a referral, let's say, in all of these cases, is where a video resume will come in handy, because you can actually attach a Google Drive link with your video uploaded, and you can have a 60 to 90-second video resume wherein you introduce yourself briefly in the first 10-20 seconds, your educational background, what are your hobbies, what are your areas of interest, what are your major skills, etc. You can talk a little bit about the company, why you want to join the company, why should you be hired, what do you like about the company, and that's pretty much about it. Your 90 seconds would be done. And what that just does is a video resume is more visual. I can get to know about your communication skills, about your confidence, your body language, your personality, and your energy, and a lot more just through a video, right? Which I might not be able to see on a piece of paper, right? So to complement that resume, a video resume is a great way to stand out, right? I'm not saying it's not a replacement for your conventional resume. Let me repeat that again. It's something you can send as an additional document to stand out from the crowd when, applying for jobs using referrals or cold emailing recruiters directly, right? So that's a little bit about your video resumes. Let me just quickly stop screen sharing for a second. Now, with that, what I'm going to move on to next is, we spoke about the different kinds of resumes, so we're done with that. We're going to move on to the most important aspect of today's session. I have a quick question to ask all of you. So please be ready in the chat section, which is, have you all heard of the term ATS? Do you have any idea what the ATS is? Have you ever heard about it? Would you like to share anything you know about it? The ones who are saying yes, if you could just share anything that you know about it. If you don't know about it, you can just put a no. Auto tracking system. Okay, resume scan. Application tracking system. Anything that you'd like to add other than the full form of ATS, please? Anybody? Okay, no problem at all. So let's first understand, obviously ATS stands for Application Tracking System or Applicant Tracking System. Okay, that's number one. That's just the full form. Okay. What you need to really understand is, why is an ATS important? Okay. How does it work? What kind of problems does it cause in a job seeker's life? And how can you probably get past it, right? And why did it even come into picture? So what you need to understand is, firstly, 99% of your Fortune 500 companies are using an ATS to scan your resume today, which means every other company you apply to, your dream jobs, they're all using an ATS, whether you apply for a job in Australia, US, UK, Canada, or India. Okay. Second thing that's very, very important to know is that it takes only 6 seconds for an applicant tracking system to go through your entire resume and make a decision whether it wants to accept or it wants to reject your resume. Okay. How does it make that decision? Very important to understand. Knowing things on the surface does not help. Most of the places you will go to will talk about things on the surface, like go to a job description of a company, pick up keywords, put it on your resume becomes ATS compliant. That's extremely misleading. That's not how it works. Just knowing that an ATS works on AI is also not going to help you much. You have to understand things in detail. How does an ATS work? First, let's understand that. An ATS works very, very similar to a robot. Okay. Now, just like a robot is fed with certain instructions, it's given certain activities to perform based on certain parameters. That's exactly how an ATS functions. If I tell a robot, listen, I want you to probably open the door of the room every time you sense a human sensory emotion. Okay, I'll put in sensors, set up all the tech and get that done. And a robot will do exactly that. Only when it senses any human sensory emotion will it open the door. If it doesn't, it won't open the door, right? It works on a basic if-else condition. If this condition is met, you do this, else you just sit like that, don't do anything. So it's the same with the ATS. The ATS is fed with certain parameters. Every applicant tracking system that a company uses is different. There is no common applicant tracking system. Applicant tracking systems are companies in themselves, and they act as vendors for your top Fortune 500 companies. So Google will tie up with a particular ATS providing company and have them at the back end of their hiring portal. Similarly, Amazon will have a different ATS. So nothing is consistent, number one. Okay. But what the ATS does is, based on the parameters that are fed into it, it will scan your resume for those parameters. And even if one parameter fails, your resume gets rejected. That's exactly how it works. Let's say if there are 5 parameters, A, B, C, D, E. Even if one of the parameters is not met, unfortunately, you get rejected because it operates like a machine. It doesn't have emotions. It's not a human being, right? It's backed by AI and ML algorithms. We started using ATSs in the recruitment space in the past, only in the last 9 to 10 years. Before that, you would apply to a company through your resume, and your resume would be seen by a human recruiter. And then if they liked it, they would call you for an interview and so on. Now what happens is, the moment you apply to any company through any means, your resume goes through the 6-second scan first. Only when it gets accepted does it further go to the human recruiter, and that's when they see it for the first time. So let's say if 1,000 people apply, 100 resumes are filtered out and vetted out by the ATS. Those 100 are shown to the HR. And then the HR further calls 50 people out of 100 who they want to interview. That's how it works today since the past 9 years. So what you need to understand is that your resume is not being compared to the other candidates or your competitors. Please understand that. When this ATS scan happens, the ATS is not comparing your resume to another candidate who's applying. Okay. So let's say if Priya is applying, Priya's resume is not getting compared to Rajesh's, who has also applied for the same job. Your resume always gets compared to the job description, sorry, not the ATS. The ATS compares your resume to the job description. The JD is your source of truth. It is your Bhagavad Gita as a job seeker. That is where everything evolves from. Always remember that. So you need to make sure that your resume is as compliant as possible with respect to the JD, because that is what your resume is going to get checked against. The parameters are going to be set against that. Very important to understand that. Okay. Now, when you talk about parameters, what could these parameters look like? So some of the most common parameters are how compliant your template is, right? to the applicant tracking system. Basis that, you will get a particular score. That could be one parameter. The second parameter maybe could be how well optimized is your resume for keywords when compared to the JD. And that could be another parameter, right? There could be certain specific parameters based on location, qualification, years of experience as well. Really depends. Like I said, every ATS has got different parameters. You cannot predict, but these are some of the most common ones. Now, two of the leading applicant tracking system providers in the world, not just in India, are Workday, okay, and Talio. So what Talio and Workday do are, they offer the applicant tracking systems to top companies and MNCs. And most of the top MNCs and companies have Workday at their backend or Talio at their backend to scan through your resumes and do this entire 6-second activity and give them the vetted resumes. Okay. Now, what is essentially going to happen is your resume is going to be given a rank. So let's say after checking all the parameters and against all the parameters, an overall score out of 100, you get a 60. And let's say the cutoff score set in the applicant tracking system is 50, let's say 65. So you are 5 scores below the cutoff. You will not make it and you will be rejected. So ultimately, you're given a score and a rank, right? And that rank or score is given against the parameters on which your resume is being judged against the JD. So always keep this in mind, right? That's the basic functioning of the ATS. Why the ATS came into picture is very simple: to make recruiters' lives easy. That's it. They wanted the recruiters to have more time in their hand, right? Because it's not humanly possible to go through thousands of resumes for one position and the amount of time it takes. And today it just takes 6 seconds. So it's become a boom for for the recruiters. But now job seekers are finding it very difficult because they struggle with getting their resume past the ATS. And that's why a lot of people are always complaining, my resume is not getting shortlisted, I'm not getting calls. That's all happening because of the ATS. Okay. So now let's understand that how can you actually make your resume ATS compliant, right? Because that is very, very important. And that is what we all want to do. Let's move on to talking about how you can make your resume ATS compliant. Okay. So I'm going to talk about 5 major important things that you can keep in mind. Beyond that, honestly, again, things are not in your control. Like I said, you can never predict the exact parameters against which your resume is being judged. You will never know as well. But what you can do is you can try your best to make sure that certain best practices and hygiene checks are in place. So that is exactly what we'll talk about. I'll show you the template next also, so don't worry. So the first thing you have to keep in mind always to make your resume ATS compliant is try to use horizontally sectioned resume templates and not column section resumes. Column section resumes are the one wherein there are 3 sections here, a division in the middle, and a 1-page resume, right? So anything that's column section does not work very well with the applicant tracking system. It likes horizontally sectioned resumes wherein there's section 1, then probably a line section 2, section 3, this way. Nothing column section, because what happens is when the ATS is scanning through your resume, this is the activity that happens. It's called parsing, and it goes through your resume in a horizontal motion. So when it finds like a white space or a barrier to not be able to scan through, and there's a blank space with no text, then the activity is actually interrupted. And hence column section resumes don't work with applicant tracking systems. Okay, that's first. Second, make your resume as text friendly as possible. The ATS loves text. It doesn't like images. It doesn't like icons, flashy illustrations, a lot of colors, a lot of sections, tables. Nothing works. Okay. All of these are things that the ATS hates. It distorts them. It destructs them. Why? Because whatever format you upload your resume in, whether it's Word, whether it's PDF, whether it's DocX or any other format, when it goes through the ATS and it's getting processed and checked, it gets converted to a .txt file type, which is a notepad file. And we all know how a notepad file looks. So you can imagine what it does to those images, icons, colors, and tables. It only likes text. It's text friendly. Make your resume professional, simple, but well formatted, right? Simple doesn't mean, obviously, you don't need to have colors and make it look flashy or aesthetically beautiful. But at the same time, it cannot be messy. It cannot look professional, right? It needs to be well formatted, well indented. Everything needs to look neat, but it needs to be, highly dominated by text. Don't put your own pictures on your resume. Doesn't work. Again, because it gets discarded. The third thing that you should definitely keep in mind is use bullet points wherever possible in your experience and project section. Don't use large paragraphs of text. It becomes difficult for the ATS to go through different paragraphs and extract keywords. But when you use bullet points, it's easier to read and skim through, both for the ATS and for the recruiter when they will also receive the resume. Okay, so always use bullet points, makes it look more structured and also makes it easily readable for scanning for the ATS and for the human HR. Okay. And one last thing that I really want you to keep in mind if you're trying to build an ATS compliant resume, which is the most important point, is always have the right keywords, okay, in your resume. Now, how do you do that? Let's say you go through a job description of a data analyst role at Google, and it says that, let's say the things under, requirements or technical skills or whatever roles and responsibilities says, we're looking for someone who has advanced level knowledge of Microsoft Excel. We're looking for somebody who understands basics of SQL and knows Python, somebody who is great with people management, good presentation skills, communication skills, someone who can work on any of the data visualization tools, such as Tableau or Power BI. These are the typical things you will see on a job description for a data analyst role, okay? Now, what are the keywords here? The keywords are Excel, Python, SQL, communication skills, presentation skills, right? Guys, don't put the same question again and again. Like I said, I will answer your questions towards the end, Vishal. If you will keep putting it even 4 more times, I'm only going to answer it towards the end. So I have seen your question. You'll get the answer. Yeah. Now, coming back, the point is that whenever you are trying to customize your resume as per the JD will have certain keywords. Like I said, in this instance, in this example, SQL, Excel, Tableau, Power BI, communication skills, presentation skills, these are all keywords. Identifying keywords is not very difficult, okay? You can go through a job description 2 to 3 times and you'll understand what the keywords are. The major struggle that job seekers have is, how do I use those keywords on my resume, or where do I plug them in? So here's how you do it. Always remember, your keywords will only go on to the changeable and tweakable sections on your resume. And which are the changeable and tweakable sections on your resume? They are your work experience section, okay, your project section, and your skill section. These are called dynamic sections. Your work experience, skills, and project section can keep changing. You can keep making amends to it. Your education, your certifications and trainings, and your personal information, these are not sections where you can do a lot of changes. They are what they are. They are static sections in your resume, okay? So make sure that you embed the keywords in these dynamic sections of your resume. How do you do it? I'll give you an example. So in the data analyst position case, let's say in your experience section, you may have done some internship in the past wherein you would have used Microsoft Excel or SQL, and you should have, because probably that's why you're interested in becoming a data analyst. So while explaining what you did there, you can always talk about how you use Microsoft Excel or SQL to perform a certain task or what you achieved. And while explaining that, you can embed the keyword Excel or the keyword SQL or the keyword Tableau in that one sentence under your experience section. That's the first time you have used that keyword. Second time, you can go to your project section. Any project you would have built in school or yourself, a self-paced project you're working on. And if you're using SQL or Excel, or you're using Tableau or Power BI or any other particular keyword that was specified there while building that project, then while explaining what the project is all about, what's the objective, how are you making the objective being accomplished, and what's the final conclusion, while explaining all of that, you can embed the keyword for the second time, same keyword. Third place is skills. Skills is the most direct and the easy section to embed the keywords. Whatever technical skills you have, put it under technical skills from the JD. Like, let's say, like I said, Tableau, Power BI, Agile, Scrum. If there are any other technical programming languages, Java, C, C++, whatever you want to put will come in your technical skills. Any other life skill or management skill like presentation skills, communication skills, interpersonal skills, problem solving, critical thinking, etc., that will all be added under management skills. So what will happen is, this way you would have used the same keyword 3 times across 3 different sections without making it look planted or inorganic, because it's spaced out. It's not put one after another and it's not bombarded, and the ATS won't detect it as a suspicious activity. So that's exactly how you optimize your resume for the keywords present in the JD. And this is exactly what you need to do every time you apply to a new job as well, because every time you'll apply for a new job role, there will be a new job description. So there will be some new keywords or some extra requirement. And that's how you will tweak and change your resume according to that one extra or 2-3 extra things there. And that's how you keep changing your resume. You don't sit down and make your resume from scratch every time you're applying for a job. Nobody does that. You don't need to do that. You don't need to sit down and make your resume 30-40 times for 40 companies. But yes, you need to spend at least 10 minutes on your resume every time you're applying to a new job by tweaking certain sections and embedding the keywords. That much effort you need to put if you want a job, right? Very, very, I would say simply put, that is exactly what you need to do. And like I said, 95% of the people don't do that. That's why they struggle with not getting the callbacks. Okay. On that note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the ATS compliant template that I have for all of you. You can take a look at it and I'll run you through it. Just give me a second. And after that, I will open up the floor for Q&A and take up all of your questions. So don't worry. Just need 5 minutes for taking you through the template and then we'll move on to Q&A. Okay. So as you can see, here is the resume template. This is the resume template that's used by most of my mentees and students. Everybody who books sessions with me or, has kind of received any kind of help from my end uses this template. Now, the first thing you need to notice in this resume template is that the first section is experience or work experience section and not education, because it's not a CV. You don't want to go and study anywhere. So your first section does not need to be education. You want to apply for a job. The first thing a recruiter wants to see is your work experience, your practical experience. So the first section always in a resume has to be your work experience section. Okay. Apart from adding the company name, your role there, and the duration you worked for there, your bullet points are extremely important under each company. Make sure that your bullet points start with power words or action words. So what are power words or action words? Words such as overlooked, managed, designed, collaborated, spearheaded, organized. So all of these keywords that end in ed are called power words or action words because they display what action did you take, or how did you create an impact in the firm, or how did you help the firm. Okay. And if it's a current job role, then you will use the present continuous tense, which means you will say managing, collaborating, spearheading, organizing. If it's a past role, you'll say organized, managed, collaborated. Okay, in the past tense, in ed. Always use numbers wherever possible. Try to back up what you're saying with data, because numbers build more trust. Okay. Whenever you add numbers, people tend to believe you more. Also, psychologically, when you look at a piece of paper, you tend to not look at the text, but your eyes and your attention goes to the numbers always. Even right now, when I'm looking at this resume on my screen, automatically my eyes are going to 10, 200%, 50%, 2017, not to the text. That's how the human psychology functions. Hence, numbers are important as well, because obviously you need your resume to go past the ATS, but ultimately to a human being will only see it, right? So you have to also make it compatible to what human beings would pay attention to. So please use numbers wherever possible to quantify what you have achieved. And make sure your resume is impact or achievement driven and not responsibility driven. What that means is, instead of saying, as a business development executive, I was responsible for generating leads and contributing to the sales of the company, which is a very generic statement to make. And every other business development executive in the world will write that. How do you make your resume stand out? You make your resume stand out by making it customized, by talking about the impact you made in the firm, right? By talking about what results were you able to make, bring for the company. So instead, why don't you tweak that point to something like, I was responsible, or I onboarded, or you start with onboarded, a power word, onboarded 50 plus leads in 2 months that contributed to 10% of the company revenue or growth, whatever you want to add it, right? That shows your capability. It makes me trust you more. It has numbers. It talks about what you achieve for the company or the company's client, how you save their money or their time or both, or facilitated their growth. So those are the kind of points that you need to add on your resume always. It's not about quantity. It's always about quality. You may have just one bullet point, but it needs to be solid. It needs to be bang on. When I read it, I need to feel like, okay, amazing. This person's done something, has created a great impact in the firm, right? Instead of just very, very lousy 3-4 points, which are making no sense, very generic, just there. Okay. So that's your experience section. Next one is called leadership or projects. If you have more than 10 years of experience, you'll call the section leadership and talk about your major highlights in your 10 years journey and some milestones. If you have less than 10 years of experience, the next section should be projects. And like I mentioned, any projects you have built in or worked on during college or after college or self-paced projects you're pursuing right now, give a project title, talk about the objective of the project, what tech stack, tools, etc., software are you using to build the project, and talk about the final outcome or conclusion of the project. So 3 bullet points under each project, and that should be it. Skills, like I said, please divide it into technical and management skills. Have all your softwares, tools, programming languages, and core expertise or skills needed for a particular domain under technical skills. And all the other life skills or management skills will come in the next section. If you want to highlight on the languages you're proficient in, you can specify that too. Next section is certifications and trainings. Don't add every other random certification or training you do on every e-learning platform or offline. Only add the ones you're most confident about, you've learned from, and you're ready to answer questions around them, and it genuinely helped you build real-life practical skills. If that certification has done that to you, only then add it or skip the section, right? Education, I need not explain it. I'm sure you all know what you need to add there. Personal information, just put your city and country, never specify your entire address. Nobody wants to know it. Have your phone number, a professional email ID, your LinkedIn profile URL must be there. It should be a clickable link. I should be able to click on it and hover over to your LinkedIn profile to know more about you. If you're applying for pure tech roles, also you can put one more link, which could either be your GitHub repository link, could be your coding profile link on any platform like HackerRank, HackerEarth, or whatever, or anything else you want to put, could be your own portfolio website link. But don't have more than 2 links on your resume, out of which one is compulsory your LinkedIn profile. Last section is achievements. Any kind of academic or cultural achievements, work-related achievements, if you're a working professional of any kind, will come here. Everything comes here, right? All roles and responsibilities you've had back in college, which you think are necessary to show would add value, can be added here. Sports, cultural activity related, dance related, debate competitions, getting an early promotion, anything. All of those achievements you can add here. If you look at the length, it's a 1.5 page resume, which is completely within our 2 pages. For freshers who use this template, who get their resumes made from me, they're easily able to fit their resume in 1 page using this template. And yeah, you shouldn't have a problem if you're using this template to have a 1 page resume or max 2 pages, right? So that's pretty much about everything I wanted to cover with respect to, resume versus CV, different kinds of resumes. What is an ATS, how to get past the ATS, and then showing you the resume template, which is an ATS compliant one. Okay. Now, on that note, I'm going to start taking up the questions in the chat that I can see and which are relevant. Just give me a second. So, Sukhji, difference between resume and CV very quickly. CVs are used when you're applying to universities to study further for an MBA or a master's or a PhD. So anything related to academics or research, you use a CV. If you're applying for a job, you use a resume. Okay. CVs concentrate more on your extracurricular activities, academic grades, and any other accomplishments. You may have had like a research paper, etc., which is valuable for a university representative. In a resume, you elaborate more on experience and skills in project section. The length of a resume should ideally be 1 page if you have 0 to 5 years of experience, right? Now, irrespective of your years of experience, resume cannot be longer than 2 pages. Okay, that's very important. CV can be 3 pages long, 4, 5, 6, whatever. There's no limit, but it should be a bare minimum of 3 pages long, ideally. So that's the difference. Which one resume is the best? There's no best template as such. Vishesh, I would always say make your resumes on Google Doc or Word, just like I did. If you see my template, there's nothing fancy in it. You can make the template in 1 minute or 2 minutes. Just the section names are there and a horizontal line is there after each section. Very simple template, and that's how your resume should be. That is what I would recommend you to use. Also, for everybody who's asking about specific formats, just wanted to let you know that this particular format that I showed you, or any ADS compliant format that you're using, you don't make different resumes depending on the roles you're applying to. Please understand that. Unless they're 2 very different roles. Let's say, obviously, the kind of resume I'm using when I'm applying for a software engineering job, software engineer's job, versus if I'm applying for a brand manager or graphic designing job, will be different. Because A graphic designing, a brand management, content writing role is very creative. I can build a colorful resume for those roles. I can go all out. I can use my creativity. I can also send a portfolio. Okay. So I may want to change it. But for your typical roles at MNCs, you don't sit down and change different templates for different roles. That's not how it works. Your resume template should just be ATS compliant. You don't need to make a different resume if you're applying for education related roles as a teacher versus if you're applying for a role as a developer. No, that's not how it works. You have to change everything else, obviously. Your experience section will be very different from a teacher, right? The keywords on the JD you're applying to will be very different. So you'll tweak it accordingly. Those things you need to work on, not on the template again and again. How to make a good and attractive resume. I think I've covered that in the session completely. Next, what's the next question? Ma'am, I am a CS degree compulsory. Is a CS degree compulsory for getting job because I'm an engineer? I don't think this is relevant to the resume building sessions. I'm going to skip that. Why can't you use profile picture on your resume? Vishal, for 2 reasons. I had explained, I'll repeat it again. Images, illustrations, icons get distorted and crushed by the ATS. It's only text friendly because it converts your resume format to .txt type. Whatever format you've submitted in, it goes through the ATS and it gets converted to notepad file. Second, pictures create a gender bias. A lot of companies have openly mentioned that whenever candidates have put up pictures on their resume, it has created a gender bias knowingly or unknowingly. So they would appreciate and they would always prefer not having pictures on the resume. Because of both the reasons, you should not have a picture on your resume, ideally. If I use bold text in resumes, that's not a problem. You can change certain keywords to bold or italics. My only suggestion would be don't do too many changes of font styles. Okay, so in your entire resume, use only one font style. The best font styles you can use are Times New Roman, Arial, and Calibri. Okay, so either use Times New Roman, Arial, or Calibri. It shouldn't be like experience section mein aap Arial use kar rahe ho, then in your education you're using Calibri. No, one style throughout the resume. Okay, and any important keywords you want to highlight, you can make them bold. But then if you're making bold in the same resume, don't make some keywords bold, some italic. Don't make too many changes. You can use a 2-page resume, which is ATS friendly. I already mentioned it's okay. Nobody is going to penalize you. आपके पास अगर आप फ्रेशर हो, आपके पास एक्सपीरियंस नहीं होगा, बट आपके पास कुछ एक्सपीरियंस तो होना चाहिए. आपके पास जॉब एक्सपीरियंस नहीं होगा, बट आपको इंटर्नशिप्स करनी चाहिए, या तो आपको किसी क्लब या चैप्टर में अपने कॉलेज में पार्ट लेना चाहिए और कंट्रीब्यूट करना चाहिए, आपको प्रोजेक्ट्स बिल्ड करने चाहिए, आपको सर्टिफिकेशंस करनी चाहिए, आपको नई चीजें सीखनी चाहिए, कोई सॉफ्टवेयर या टूल सीखना चाहिए. मैं ये बोलना चाह रही हूँ कि आपके पास जॉब एक्सपीरियंस नहीं होगा, बट एज अ स्टूडेंट जो इंडिया में 2023 में किसी भी कॉलेज में पढ़ रहा है, मोस्टली आपके पास बाकी अपॉर्चुनिटीज होती हैं. अगर आपके पास एक्सपीरियंस सेक्शन नहीं है दिखाने के लिए, ट्राई टू फाइंड इंटर्नशिप्स और इंटर्नशिप्स को हाईलाइट करो. खुद प्रोजेक्ट्स बनाओ कॉलेज में, सेल्फ पेस प्रोजेक्ट्स को हाईलाइट करो. ठीक है, क्लब्स और चैप्टर्स ज्वाइन करो एंड बिल्ड ऑन स्किल्स, वो हाईलाइट करो. और लर्न अ न्यू सॉफ्टवेयर और अ टूल. यू विल ऑलवेज हैव समथिंग और द अदर. अगर ये सारे ही आपके पास नहीं है, then that's problematic. There's a problem that you have to solve. क्योंकि ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है as a college student in 2023 कि आपके पास ना एक्सपीरियंस हो, ना सर्टिफिकेशंस हो, ना इंटर्नशिप हो, ना कोई इंडस्ट्रियल ट्रेनिंग है, ना कोई क्लब या चैप्टर है, ना कोई टूल आप सीख रहे हो, ना कोई कोर्स कर रहे हो. अगर ये सभी अगर आप नहीं कर रहे, then it's problematic. ठीक है, so that's how you will make your resume. Freshers will just prioritize other things which they have right now and put those sections on top. That's the only thing you will do. आप हाईलाइट दूसरे सेक्शंस करोगे बिकॉज आप उन चीजों में इन्वॉल्व हो. अगर आपके पास इस वक्त जॉब एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है, एंड बाय द वे वर्क एक्सपीरियंस सेक्शन के अंडर ही इंटर्नशिप्स भी आती हैं, तो अगर आपने इंटर्नशिप्स की हैं, यू कैन डिस्प्ले दैट. ओके, यू कैन मेंशन कैंपस एम्बेसडर प्रोग्राम, नॉट इन लीडरशिप सेक्शन, इन एक्सपीरियंस सेक्शन अंडर इंटर्नशिप्स. If fresher doesn't have work experience, what we can put? I answered that. For everybody asking me, freshers के लिए क्या टेम्पलेट होगी guys? सेम टेम्पलेट होगी, सिर्फ एक डिफरेंस होगा, सिर्फ एक, क्योंकि एज अ फ्रेशर आपके पास भी एजुकेशन सेक्शन होगा, आपके पास भी सर्टिफिकेशन एंड ट्रेनिंग्स होंगी. ठीक है, आप फ्रेशर हो, ठीक है, अभी आप फर्स्ट ईयर में हो यार, आप फर्स्ट ईयर में कहाँ अप्लाई कर रहे हो फॉर अ कंपनी, आई डोंट नो. आप ऑब्वियसली अप्लाई करना शुरू करते हो थर्ड ईयर में. बाय थर्ड ईयर आई एम श्योर यू वुड हैव सम सर्टिफिकेशंस. आपको एटलीस्ट एक इंटर्नशिप तो आपने की होगी, आपने कुछ सीखा होगा, तो तब आप वो सब डालोगे. The only difference is आपके पास वर्क एक्सपीरियंस सेक्शन में टॉप पे कंपनीज नहीं होंगी टू शो कि मैंने इधर जॉब की है, ठीक है। तो वो सेक्शन अगर किसी के पास नहीं है कोई बात नहीं, आपका प्रोजेक्ट सेक्शन ऊपर आ जाएगा, या आपका सर्टिफिकेशन सेक्शन फर्स्ट हो जाएगा, या आपका स्किल्स वाला सेक्शन आप टॉप पे रख सकते हो, ठीक है। Only the section order will change or one section will get discarded. Nothing else will change as a fresher. Vishesh, I've spent about 20 minutes talking about how you can make the resume specific to a company, about keyword optimization with an entire example. If you're applying for a data analyst job at Google, how do you pick up the keywords? How do you put it in your experience, project, skill section? Pura, everything I'd explained. I'm not sure why is your question coming in after me explaining that. I will share the resume sample, guys. Please don't worry. I'll share the link. Should you include competitive coding platform ratings on your resume? That's a choice, your choice. For one platform, you can, maybe don't put multiple, but with anybody with less than 10 years of experience, you don't need a professional summary or a career objective on your resume. So really your question is, if you have 8 months of experience, do you need to keep your summary in resume or not? You don't need to. If you have less than 10 years of experience, you don't need any summary, career objective, not needed. Do enclosures like appreciation letters, certificates, etc. work well with the ATS? No, they don't. And a resume is not the place to put the enclosures. When you're sending an email, you put the enclosures, never on a resume. You never put a declaration on a resume. You don't sign a resume. You don't put any enclosures on a resume. I'm not suggesting any apps to you guys. I already answered it. Please make your resume on Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Best way. Yeah. I think I have mentioned that earlier as well. Font size restriction. I would say ideally use font size between 9 to 12, right? For your main content, not below 9, not above 12. And for your titles, all your section headers, like education, work experience, achievements, you can go up to font size 14 for the headers. Nitin, aapne at least 10th time your question pucha hai that can we mention about campus ambassador program in resume and leadership section? Number one, if you have less than 10 years of experience, तो leadership है ही नहीं. And being a campus ambassador is not leadership. As such, you'll put it under your resume section in internship, specify it as an internship. So of course, says yes, CCNA certification as well as CEH certification, which is great. I think you have a computer networks background. And if those are the kind of core jobs you're going to be working in, then definitely please highlight those certifications in your certification section. What types of resumes are accepted in MNCs? Like I said, all of what I've covered is for MNCs. Every MNC is using an ATS. The kind of template I showed you, horizontally sectioned, simple, text-friendly, non-colorful, non-tabular format, non-image cluttered template. Anything that fits all of that you can use. Tables are not ATS friendly. I had mentioned that earlier as well. What are the things that will come under non-curricular activities? Anything that you're doing outside of work, any passion project you're working on, anything that you're doing, maybe attending any conferences, publishing research papers, taking part in hackathons, competitions, etc. All of that can come in here. Interests, you don't need to add. Interest और hobbies कभी भी resume में add नहीं करते हैं. जब आप अपने आप को introduce कर रहे होते हो, interview में या video resume बना रहे हो, उसमें you can talk about interests and hobbies, not in a resume. What else? Let me just check. बहुत सारे messages हो गए. So I'm just. Can we mention volunteering section in resume? Yes, Praveen, you can talk about all the volunteering work you have done as a subsection under your achievement section. So achievement section ke andar hi, you can have volunteering as a separate subsection, and you can talk about all the volunteering work you've done with an NGO, NPO, or a charitable organization there. Do we have any other relevant questions that you have for me? I've tried to pick the most important ones, the ones that have not been repeated. If I had taken a session on any topic like machine learning and business communication skills, can I add it, and where should I add it? If you've taken a session and if you have learned a lot about it from that session and you're very confident it has really helped you evolve, then you can add it in your certifications and training section, or else you can skip it. People with more than 10 years of experience can add a summary or a profile objective or professional summary in their resume. Volunteering activities and volunteering roles will be mentioned as a subsection under your achievement section, guys. I had just mentioned that. You can create it as a subsection under achievements. What if I've changed 4 jobs in 4 years after completion of my education? Then how to prepare a resume? By talking about those 4 jobs in those 4 years, showing your transition, and talking about what skills you have gained in those 4 years in those 4 jobs. Obviously, you'll have to justify why you had frequent switches in an interview, but we have to first worry about one thing. So let's go one step at a time. Your resume needs to talk about your 4 different jobs, 4 different companies, and your ability and what you've gained out of those 4 jobs. You have to talk about whatever you've learned in those 4 jobs and how the skills you've learned in those 4 jobs are going to come in handy and make you an asset for this 5th new job that you're going to move towards, right? Your ultimate aim is that your resume should talk about your key strengths, the impact you can create in their organization, and how you're an asset because you've worked in 4 different environments, maybe in 4 different roles, I don't know right now, and not make it look negative, rather turn it to your advantage and talk about how you can wear different hats. You have multidisciplinary skills and you can help the firm grow. That's the narrative you'll have to drive through the way you articulate the content in your resume. Okay. Okay, just give me a second. I'm also sharing the resume template link with you. This is a non-editable link. You won't be able to edit it, guys. You can only kind of copy paste it and put it to a new Google Drive, Google Doc, and then you can use that template. Okay. You won't be able to edit it. I'm letting you know right now. Just give me 1 second. Thanks, Mohin. Yes, so I think that's pretty much it for today's session. Thank you so much for having me. I am just sending the link. If you all have any further questions or doubts, feel free to reach out to me on my LinkedIn. I go by my name, Dhairya Gangwani, and I'd be happy to answer your questions, or you can drop me a DM on Dhairya Decodes on my Instagram channel as well. I'll help you out. That's the link. It's a non-editable link, right? And for any further questions, feel free to reach out to me. I think, yeah, the host, I think, can come in at this point. That's all from my end.
Thank you, Dhairya. A heartful thank you for your fantastic webinar on resume hacks to boost your career. Your insights and practical tips were incredibly valuable for our students. Your expertise has ignited a passion for career growth in their mind. We truly appreciate your time and dedication in guiding for the for future professionals ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. Bye. All the
Bye.
best.